Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones to growth and clarity. Today's guest is Roy Coughlan, a serial entrepreneur who has founded over 20 companies across 5 countries and hosts multiple top-ranked podcasts. But his resume isn't just a list of wins. It's built on a massive foundation of resilience. Roy navigated a devastating financial collapse where he went from owning multiple properties to losing his home, his possessions, and facing a personal liability of $5 million. He is here to share the raw reality of that rock bottom, how he rebuilt his life and mindset from scratch, and how he now helps others find their voice and grow their businesses. Roy, privileged to welcome you to FailCraft. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me. Looking forward to the conversation.
Great. Let's get started. So, bio stops people in their tracks. You mentioned going from substantial wealth to losing everything, so including your home and your possessions, while personally facing a $5 million liability. So, can you take us back to that specific moment when the reality of that loss truly hit you? So what did that rock bottom moment feel like?
I remember asking myself, how did this happen? It was kind of a shock to the system. So I suppose just to kind of give people a bit of context, I was doing a load of real estate in Poland, building and having a commercial property, managing over 200 properties, doing loads of renovations. I had about 14 people on my books, and I put syndicates together. And when the crash happened in 2008, it took a while to come across, and a lot of the investors were Irish, and they started getting wiped out. And I didn't think it was going to be long term, so I started putting my finances into some of the stuff that we had mortgages on, saying, look, I'll charge a 10% interest and just pay me when it gets right, or I increase my share. And they got wiped out, and eventually I started kind of getting, running out of money, and the whole lot came tumbling down. And usually, if it's a limited liability company, which I had a few of for the different developments, you just kind of, brush yourself off and go, okay, that was a lesson learned, let's move on and let's start again. But I was the president of all these companies, and that's why I was personally liable for the 5 million. And then just through that, then I had over 100 court cases, and I saw so much corruption, with courts, with bailiffs, just everything the way that it was done. And, you can ask him where I was. I remember thinking, I didn't do anything. I know I wasn't doing anything sneaky. I was doing everything. I've always worked straight. I don't do backhanders or anything like that. And it was a shock to the system, like, how could this happen? And it was just through lessons later, realised that the whole lot was orchestrated and it was corruption at the highest levels.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing that story with us, Roy. So, losing $5 million isn't just financial, it's an identity crisis. So, how did you deal with the internal battle of failure when everything you had built was stripped away?
It took a while. And I think one of the hard things was, it was like losing all the stuff in Poland was hard enough. But I had 3 properties in Ireland, and they took them all, but they took my own house and my personal belongings. And I just kind of accepted it, but I wasn't expecting them to come and take the house. And it was my mum telling me, my dad passed 2 years ago, but he was alive at the time. And he broke down crying, and that hurt me more, knowing that it hurt him. Just seeing that the door had been locked up and changed and everything, because they used to look after my house when I was in Poland. They used to cut the edging and things, just making sure, check posts and stuff like that. And then, when he realised, they'd taken over this property, he started crying. And that hurt me, knowing that. And I suppose kind of I overcame it was, one, meditation helped me, because like most of these companies, credit card companies, everything, they're abusive. They're like the bully in the schoolyard. They're ringing you daily. Like, you're just after losing everything. You're done. You're barely able to survive. And they're just ringing you and abusing you. And then you're getting letters threatening that they'll put you in the newspaper, publishing your debts. it's like the worst thing they can do. So that's why, unfortunately, some people throw in the towel. And shame on all them involved. They know what they're doing. They're just taking people's properties. And it's all a game to them. And like how it helped me, and I recommend, because everyone has battles all through their life. We go through a roller coaster, and meditation helped me. I came across a thing called the 6 phase meditation, and eventually kind of done it myself. And it's kind of where you're saying great gratitude. What are you grateful for? Because when we go through a loss, whether it's business or relationship, we tend to look at all the negative and not the positive. But if you look at gratitude, it's like, my son is giving me a cuddle. My parents are supporting me. I've got friends. I have a roof over my head. I'm able to put food in my belly. So you're grateful for that. And so you start attracting things that are positive instead of thinking that they're negative. And the other one was the act of forgiveness. Because with all these different things, I had so many court cases and so many people were fraudulent that I just had hatred towards them. And I said, I have to stop this. I have to stop having hatred towards others. And some were easy because they weren't as big, but the big ones, I was trying, meditating, trying to think how to forgive them. And it was just not working. And what I did is I brought him back to the child. I said, we've unconditional love for a child. Like if a baby holds your finger, like you just feel gratitude and love. And what I said is they were once like that. And it was external circumstances made them who they were, whether it was abusive parents, alcoholic parents, or even parents that worked a couple of jobs and couldn't look after them and just left them hanging around with the wrong people. So by doing that, I was able to forgive them. But what it did is it freed it from me. There was no longer hatred. And I just was able to move on with my life. So I'd encourage everyone, practice the art of forgiveness.
Uh, Very, very beautiful piece of advice there, Roy. So, I read across your profile and saw where you mentioned you used to be extremely shy. So, did that financial crisis force you to find your voice, or did the confidence later came when you started rebuilding?
It like when I saw corruption against me. So, for example, like we had a tenement building, and the city are supposed to, if the tenants don't pay you go through an eviction process. And I don't want nobody on the street. I don't think anybody should be living on the street. But the city are supposed to provide accommodation for these people, and they don't. So then I had to sue the city. And you can't sue them as a block. So we had like 13 units in one and 11 in another. You have to sue them for each individual one. So you have to pay the court fees and the solicitor fees for each one. So it's a lot of paperwork, And the minute I started suing the city, they started attacking me. They have like rubbish police coming at you. They had technical inspectors. And like, I could see that this was total corruption. And I'd scream at them. I'd say this is corruption. Their hits would go down. Even it was in courts, and I shouted at a judge because I realised how much corruption. It's the same thing. Instead of saying you're in contempt of court, she put her head down and nodded. What happened is I was representing myself in the High Court in Ireland against a barrister, and my voice wasn't gone. It was like when I realise somebody's doing something against me, it's the mission is more important. And when I went through all this, I went to an event, and it was called What's Your Quest? It was a Mind Valley event, an A-Fest event. And at that event, I said, I'm going to expose all this fraud and corruption, because I knew of people throwing in the towel. And it's like, and nobody hears it, because it's like people kind of keep quiet about all the cases that are so sad. And I said, I'm going to do it. And it was the two brilliant speakers, and I hated speaking. Like, even when I was working in Ireland, the one time I didn't like it, when I was working for a mechanical contractor, was when there was a meeting, and there could be 20 people at the table. My voice would go, at 18, you're allowed drink in Ireland at 18. I think it could be the same in Africa. But in America, I know it's 21. But I wouldn't go up to the bar. I give my friend the money when it was my turn. That's how shy I was. And I realised at that event, I need to overcome this. So I came back, joined the Toastmasters, joined another Toastmasters, formed my own club, became the coach of a club, and just entered every competition, done loads of speeches, got into the final of 5 countries, done open TEDx, done open comedy, because with comedy, people aren't going to, like Toastmasters, they'll all clap for you, whether it's a terrible speech or not, because it's just out of courtesy. But if you're doing comedy, people are reacting whether you're good or not. So that's why I actually done that. And I kind of overcame my fear of public speaking. And why it's so important is I kind of created a story in my head. I'm shy. That's who I am. And then I decided I had a new mission in life. And it's like, why didn't I tell myself that a long time ago? And I say to everyone, learn how to speak in public and don't be shy. Because what happens is in corporations, it's normally the lazy, slimy people that can speak that get the promotion because they come across as if they're better. And it's the good people that keep their head down and they're shy and quiet. They just get on with their job. Don't. So make sure that the person that doesn't deserve the promotion, that is you get it if you're the hard working one. And like this Toastmasters, that like it's very cheap. They're international. They're in Africa. They're in the States. They're all over the world. I mean, at the time, I think we were paying like $50 for 6 months. So it's very cheap. And you get support from people there. You can enter competitions. There's a good community. I've got friends still from it. And what I would say is that if you ever say, I'm too shy, take it out of your vocabulary. And what I've done with my kids is, I think a lot of the times the parents are guilty of this because what they do is they try to protect their child. So if the child is in a restaurant and they want something, they'll do it. If they're in a shop, they'll go up and they pay and they'll do everything. Whereas I do the opposite. I was like, oh, you want ketchup? Yeah, you go up and ask for it. You want this? You take your order. And my children aren't shy because I've done that. So try not to be protecting your child because eventually they're going to be in the world and they'll be like me thinking, I'm shy. When the reality is you've just made a decision you're shy or you've told yourself you're shy. So if I can overcome being so shy, anybody can.
That's a great response there, Roy. So you, during the course of this conversation, you mentioned reading about 50 books in 6 months. So how did you get yourself to be such a good reader, someone who likes to read so many books? And did reading these books help you to conquer your shyness, your fear of public speaking?
Well, I definitely think later on it helped because I bought like TEDx books or I bought John F. Kennedy on speeches and things like that. So when I'm specific on something or if I get into a certain business, I'll buy books on that topic. And I don't know, I find it's my kind of my way of relaxing in life. It's something I thoroughly enjoy. And sometimes it could be an audiobooks are okay if I'm not making notes and stuff like that, because some books are like that. You just listen and they're enjoyable. But usually I'm making notes. I have my highlighter and I'm making points, and then later I'll action it. But sometimes people say, oh, I don't have to. Like if you read an hour a day, some books are 1 hour and some are 3 hours. Yeah, you can buy ones that are 700 pages and they'll be longer. But on average, you'll have, they're usually about 300. And that's about 3 to 4 hours. So, but what I would say is don't stick to a certain topic. Like, don't just, like at one stage I used to be reading just biographies and business books. And now I'm really broad. I read on health, I read on corruption, I read on all different things. And the fact, like I've got 6 podcasts, people send me their books and I'm reading books I never would have bought and I'm thoroughly enjoying them. And just be listening. And sometimes I'm listening to a show, like I listen to Patrick Bet-David and he'll mention a book. And I go, I like his style. I like what he's doing. And if he recommends a book, I'll go away and I'll order that book straight away. And just by doing that, when you're passionate about what you're doing, so for example, with the podcasting, the books help me with the conversations that I'm doing. So I can actually read something and then on a certain topic, I'm able to talk about it because I've actually researched it. Not just one book. Sometimes I can read 5 books on a certain topic and I understand it a lot better. And sometimes you can connect things. Loads of books have been doctored. Information is wrong. But by I prefer the books that are about 80 years old plus because they tend to be truer. But what you can do sometimes is you read a few books and you'll be able to connect the dots and you kind of then decide for yourself what's the truth instead of just getting a little bit of it in some of the books.
All right, fantastic. So, Roy, for the entrepreneur listening right now who is starting at a massive debt or a failing business and feels like it's game over for them, so what is the first practical thing you would advise them to do today to keep going?
Stop blaming yourself. Just have forgiveness for yourself, whether it was something you did yourself or there was external people that, sure, like even say Amazon or whatever. Sometimes people have a great business and then they'll take your product and start selling it yourself and your business overnight disappears and then you go into debt. Like sometimes there's external circumstances that are creating the situation you're in. and don't have hatred. Just, it is what it is. And like, I remember one of my business partners, he said, money solves every problem. What we do is we tend to put our energy into the thing that's hurting us the most, or thinking of the past and stuff like that. Start thinking of where you can start creating new income. Forget about the debt. I mean, like, you just have to go through it. And what I would actually say is learn sovereignty, because through all of my court cases and everything, I understood, like, there's common law, UCC, sovereignty, that we were born free, yet governments and cities think they own us and control us. And when you understand the power of who you are, they no longer have power over you. And I've used that. I've used it, like, because, they try to, for example, if you're walking across the street, I mean, I'm not sure what it's like in Nigeria, but in Ireland, there's no car coming, you just cross. But in
Mm.
Poland, even if I don't mean on a 3-4 lane traffic, because that's different. But, if there's one lane each way and there's nothing coming, but yet the red man is on, it's like, they're standing there waiting to give you the fine. The same in America. And it's like, who's the injured party? And the first thing they do is they'll give you a piece of paper to sign it. Or if they're sending you bills, it's always Mr. Ezekiel, all capital letters, your name. That's not you. That's the corporate entity. And it's like, it's too deep to go into this, but it's like, one thing I would say to any entrepreneur, research this, because it's got power. Because I think everyone realizes that the world is in a spiral, that the wrong people are controlling it. But there's loads of beautiful things happening, but we never see it because they don't want to see it. And it's like, if you're going to expect somebody that's going to save us, as in a certain leader, the leader is within. Save yourself, understand the power that you've got. And when you do that, you're saving your family. Then you're sharing that with your friends. And that's how we make change. We make change at local level.
All right, Roy. So after building, empires and losing a fortune, and then rebuilding a life of impact and podcasting, I'd like to know, what does being successful truly mean to you now, Roy?
It's living in the moment. It's like, it's not planning for the house of the future or the car of the future. It's like, we never know when our last day will come. Hopefully we live to 200. Not sure will it happen. Some people do. But the thing is, make sure that today you enjoyed it.
Mm.
And if you're going for a walk, don't be walking with this device in front of you and just looking with your head down. Like, I'm always paying attention to nature. I'm watching the flock of birds in the sky. Like, if I'm in the garden, I'm watching a bee going on a flower and it just bending. I'm watching the ants out there, and just be present. And by being present, I think you're more connected with nature. You're more connected with yourself. And that way, no matter when our last day comes, because unfortunately it does at some stage, at least I enjoyed myself today.
Wow, wow, wow. That was an uh, an amazing one there. Truly, truly beautiful way to see what being successful means. So, for our listeners who wants to find your podcast, join the Podfather community or connect with you. So, Roy, where is the best place for them to go?
They'll find everything about me on roycallin.com.
All right, fantastic. I'll be sure to link it to the show notes so that listeners can go check it out and learn more about you or connect with you. So, Roy, this has been an incredible story of resilience, and it's a really valuable conversation. I'm indeed excited and honored to have you on the show today, sir.
Thank you very much. And what I would just like to say to the listeners, to help your show, make sure they give you a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, and comment, because it really helps and it allows more people to listen. Because I've listened to a few of your shows, and all of the advice that people are giving is helping others. And that's what we need, more of that in this world.
Thank you very much.